So that was the late, great James Horner. He was the musician behind the score of the movie we're talking about today. Hello and welcome to Field of Geeks at the Movies. We are your hosts, Josh,
Mitch,
and Steve.
Today we're discussing Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And we are doing this because it's the 50th anniversary of Star Trek. And we just thought we'd pay our geek respects, starting with this film. This is probably considered to be the best Star Trek film amongst the fans and perhaps the non-fans, because it's a movie that can kind of reach everybody, it seems. Yeah. Kind of like Star Trek 4 did.
Right.
Yeah.
So on. Let's go around the room and just share our thoughts on the film overall.
You know, it's, and I watched the movie again for probably the fourth or fifth time, just recently. It foreshadows a lot. And I could never get away from Ricardo Montalban's weird outfit. You know,
yeah.
That oily chest and that hair that, stuck up so high. But it's a great movie. It's one that finally shows the true friendship between Spock and Captain Kirk, and I think it really set the tone for the rest of the series.
Sure.
I'm a Star Trek fan, not as big as a lot of other people are, but I thought it was a great movie overall. Besides The Voyage Home, I think that's my favorite Star Trek movie, but
sure.
This one is a very close second as far as watchability and stuff like that. A couple of them are a little dry.
Yeah.
Drag on a little long, but this one's really good.
What would you rank it, I guess, out of 10?
Oh, I'd say a solid 8.
Solid 8? Warp 8? Cool.
Warp Factor 8. I think this movie was awesome. A lot of redemptive powers from Star Trek the Motion Picture. You know, there was that was certainly with mixed reviews, but I don't know about Ricardo Montalban. You don't complain about my oily chest. But, no.
That's because you braid your hair.
Oh, that's true. My chest hair.
Yes.
So this has gone south. Well, let's
move.
Right. We'll turn this back around.
It was the 80s. They got away with it.
Got away with it totally. But it was awesome. I mean, you had so many shout outs to the prior Space Seed television show in which it was, kind of founded off of. And you're right, Mitch. I mean, it laid the groundwork for kind of what was to come in the Star Trek series, and arguably the best original series movie, there was without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, it was awesome. But great stuff.
Yeah.
This is the first one with actual suits that weren't the original from the series, right?
Well, the motion picture was different from the series as well, but it was very different suits compared to...
This one introduced the suits that they would use throughout the rest of the series. Those kind of red military almost looking... I mean, this series introduced that, or that movie introduced these.
A little bit more formal, more appropriate looking for
and a lot of it was done because budget cuts, from the motion picture. We had a huge budget. And I heard like those costumes had to be like steamed all the time just to make them all... They weren't, they were okay uniforms, but they were very 70s, I guess.
It was, it was a product of its time.
Sure.
The only thing that I enjoyed about the first Star Trek movie in general was just being able to see them all again, of
course.
But beyond that, and honestly, I think McCoy was probably the best part of the first movie.
Yeah.
I loved it. He hated being on the transporter. He didn't want to come back. And, he had his beard and he was grumpy. And,
yep.
He was really the only life of that first movie. And, but it's been a while since I've seen it. I don't really routinely, actively try to watch that one over and over again. But I watched Wrath of Khan again recently. And, for, I don't know, the 100th time. Of course, I remember seeing it in the theater. You probably weren't even born yet, Mitch, but...
I was.
Yeah, you were.
I was maybe 1.
Yep, I remember seeing it, but such a great, great movie. The Genesis concept and all stuff we'll talk about. But
of course,
it was great.
Yeah, so much stuff. I mean, this movie really, a lot of people would say, the 79 motion picture was long and boring. Maybe it was just boring, I guess. It might have been the same length if you look at it, I guess. But it
felt
was
way longer.
Yeah, right. Well, and a lot of people give a bunch of, crap about showing the Enterprise off, but that was like the first time they were able to show off and actually make a great model. Not to say the original wasn't, but this was like top of the line. Compared to a cheap TV series, they were able to...
budget behind it.
Yeah, it was huge. And that Enterprise, I really enjoyed those shots. And I don't know. I think that movie was kind of underrated. I get the boring factor. It has a lot of sci-fi in it.
Right.
Versus these other movies. They have sci-fi elements, but they seem to be more regular action-packed.
Generic audiences have a hard time embracing true sci-fi. You
True.
know, I mean, it needs to be more fi.
Yeah, right.
With a touch of sci, you know, I mean,
I think that's what the other ones, Voyage Home probably was the one that went far out, I guess you could say, or I guess 3, but I mean, those are ones we'll explore down the road, of course.
Of course.
So yeah, Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, it was released in 82. As we said before, it came after the 1979 Star Trek The Motion Picture, which was the first Star Trek movie ever. The motion picture was considered a bomb. It made money, but Paramount didn't really get what they wanted out of it. Creator Gene Roddenberry proposed a story for Star Trek II where the Enterprise stops the Klingons from saving JFK.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And the studio blamed Roddenberry for the high cost and poor reviews of the motion picture. The studio removed him from the role as executive producer and made him executive consultant.
Well, he would stall so much with rewrites and ideas that were obviously THC based.
Sure. Sometimes
you would think, right? I mean,
had to been.
He was interesting.
If you watch the behind the scenes of the motion picture, what was going down, I think there's points where Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner were trying to contribute to the script. Like they didn't really have an ending. You know, It was just kind of like, we're filming and big budget, big director, Robert Wise. Harve Bennett was brought on as producer to take place of Roddenberry. And he would go on to produce Star Treks 3 through 5. And Paramount lowered the budget considerably due to the poor motion picture profits. For Bennett to get ready for his new role, he watched all 80 episodes of the original series. And he never saw these shows before at all. Didn't even really know what Star Trek was. He came upon Space Seed, which featured Ricardo Montalban as Khan. He found his villain. He thought that there wasn't really a villain from the first movie, and that was kind of one of the problems.
Right.
This was episode 24 of Star Trek, the original series, titled Space Seed. So if you guys want to go check that out, it's kind of cool.
Seen it a million times.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to watch before you see the movie.
And it was completely different.
Oh, of course, yeah. Because it's like 15, 20 years later.
15 in canon, but...
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Khan was a genetically enhanced soldier and had a superior intellect.
The Eugenics Wars.
Yes. And that's a whole like comic or book series, I believe. That could have been a hell of a trilogy of movies or something.
Yeah.
That would have been really cool. Of course, it was like 1996.
Uh-huh.
So it was a fictional 1996.
Yeah.
I don't remember that, I don't remember
The year before my daughter was born, I don't remember, the Eugenics Wars at all.
Yeah.
But I wasn't paying attention.
Well, it wasn't in,
Right.
That's just the thing. It wasn't in. So, yeah. So Khan survived going up against Captain Kirk and the Enterprise, spoiler, in the episode Space Seed. The Enterprise crew marooned Khan with his people on City Alpha 5. So the title of the episode Space Seed basically referred to, I guess, the end result, planting a species somewhere and wondering what would grow out of it. Beautifully put by Leonard Nimoy as Spock, of course.
Would be interesting, Captain, to return to that world in 100 years and learn what crop had sprung from the seed you planted today.
Yes, Mr. Spock. It would indeed.
And
like that.
We did.
Yeah. Well, he came to us. Surprise. So Bennett also recognized the trinity of Star Trek, which was Kirk, Bones, and Spock. Studio wanted ships to look like Star Wars, weathered and so on.
Uh-huh.
So the ships and costume designers explained that the fleet had to be sleek, and the idea was squashed for Star Trek or Star Wars like ships.
Right. I'm glad.
They really needed
Same
that,
here.
though, because, you would have just thought, another Star Wars movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a Battlestar Galactica or something.
It differentiated itself.
Didn't get away from its original design or anything like that. And the uniforms changed dramatically as well. Became the marooned military-like jackets. Kind of dug it. I'm sure it was hot as hell to wear.
Yeah. It was almost like a dumbed-down band uniform.
Yeah.
A little bit.
What do we got?
Right.
Young director Nicholas Meyer was brought on. He didn't even know anything about Star Trek, so that was a good start.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out most people who aren't familiar with Star Trek end up really giving us some great stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a trend. The Reliant was to look like a smaller version of Enterprise, and the design was faxed to Harv Bennett to have him sign off on it. Only problem is he signed off on it upside down. Well, I came to realize he read it wrong, the design. Yeah. So with that mistake, they basically just decided to flip the ship upside down.
Yeah.
So originally, the warp engines would be up top like the Enterprise. So they just flipped it.
Which makes sense, and it actually is a great design look.
It is,
You know, it's an awesome mistake because the Reliant looks and feels, while there's similarities because it's a Federation ship, it looks totally different.
Kind of like a Predator-looking thing, you know, just batting down at you. So the Spock death scene attracted Nimoy to come back. Nimoy and Nicholas Myers didn't like the early drafts of the script. Myers was a fan of, you know, Shakespeare and all kinds of literature, which he just populated throughout the movie. Khan uses a lot of like gestures from Moby Dick.
Yeah.
He tasks me.
Yes. And I shall go
I shall have him.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Myers rewrote the script quickly so Nimoy could read it on the flight out of town. And it was much better, Nimoy said. Kirk was turning 50 in this story, which was a big deal for Shatner at the time.
Yeah.
He didn't really want to put his age out there, but Bennett, you know, persuaded him to do it.
Sure.
So he did. And then originally...
Did he get a new hairpiece for his 50th?
It looks like he did.
He did.
A little bit
gold
thicker.
highlights.
He did, yeah.
Something I need to go purchase.
Likewise.
Just go kill a possum and...
You know, when I drove Shatner, I really should have asked him, you know, who do you get your hair pieces from?
Right.
Because they're so beautiful.
Fuck you.
Yeah, that's exactly what he would have said. Mitch, I hope you die.
It's come through now, Mitch.
Yeah.
Sparkles.
So originally Spock was supposed to die early on in the story, but the script leaked early and fans just went ape shit.
Right.
And, you know, kind of, threatened people's lives over.
Oh, yeah. Crazy.
God, in a day and age when they didn't have the internet, how did something like that leak?
Well,
early?
think about how it would have been if there was the internet. I mean, talk about crazy town.
Oh,
well, yeah, it's like a lot of people say now, like, there's, nut jobs out there. They've always been here.
Mm-hmm.
You just know them now because of the internet.
One Spock, he gets to die twice now in this movie. So, that's kind of cool.
So Nimoy started having doubts about giving up Spock, as they were shooting, because I think he was actually having a good time.
All right.
Versus the experience from the motion picture.
And I'm sure he felt the quality of this movie versus the first one and realized, well, this looks like it might be going somewhere.
Sure. Because he was impressed with the director, Nicholas Meyer.
Better writing overall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the producer did his homework. I mean, I could imagine Roddenberry not know all the 80 shows. Mm-hmm. Who knows if he ever watched all of them or not. Right. But for a new producer to actually jump in and do that, like,
he took his craft seriously.
Yeah, he did a great job. When the movie was done, it originally screened for test audiences with Spock's death at the end, and there was really no happy ending. So the audience left like it was a funeral, basically. Sure. And the execs panicked and they did reshoots. Nimoy, I think he had the idea of putting his hand on Bones' head and telling him, remember.
Yeah.
So it was like, whatever that's going to be, it's there. So I guess that gave fans hope, and they inserted that famous last scene with the pod on the surface. Nimoy citing the
opening dialogue. He finished with it in his own voice, which was a first. Right. And it's always been Kirk.
Yeah. That was the first time.
That was pretty cool.
Right. And the remakes even used that as well, which was great. So, the start of this movie, of course, we had the great score by James Horner, which is just fantastic. I mean, the motion picture score was great, too. That's stuck with the franchise. Yeah. Next Generation especially.
Yeah, it came from that.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And I'll never forget the reveal of the new Enterprise with that score. It was just incredible. We open with a female Vulcan sitting at the command chair of the USS Enterprise, with senior crew and some cadets on their consoles. Officer Savick, Kirstie Alley played, makes a log entry, then orders Commander Sulu to project a course to avoid entering a neutral zone at the Klingon frontier. Suddenly, Uhura receives a distress call from the Kobayashi Maru, a ship that has been struck by a type of gravity mine. They're inside the neutral zone. They need to be rescued. So Savick decides to take the ship in and rescue the survivors. Sulu and Spock warn Savick not to do this. she does it anyway. I mean, we get the idea she's a young cadet. There is something interesting about this. They call her Mr. Savick. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah.
I guess it's a naval thing.
Uh-huh.
There's no gender really. It's just Mr. whoever's commanding. So that was just a little funny anecdote I found about that. They enter the neutral zone. 3 Klingon battle cruisers fire upon them. The Enterprise is heavily damaged. Explosions going off everywhere on the bridge. Before revealing what's going on, I don't know if you remember, Steve, as when you were there in the audience, did you think this was really happening? Like, my God.
Yeah, because you don't know what's happening.
Right.
It's like, number one, where's Kirk?
Yeah.
And what's Lieutenant Xenu doing? I didn't know that at the time. She was a Scientologist. But, why is she piloting the Enterprise?
Travolta just turned us off.
Right, exactly.
So weird.
But yeah, you're freaking out if you're like, whoa, what's happening?
Yeah.
And this movie's starting off crazy.
Yeah.
But, she was in violation of treaty.
Right, exactly.
Spock says.
Yeah, exactly. So, she orders abandoned ship. The alert's going off. The voice of Admiral Kirk comes on and says, all right, that's enough.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Open the doors or whatever.
Open the doors, yes. And then the view screen slides aside, revealing Shatner just rocking the new, outfit and hair looking great. And, he looks like an admiral.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like Kirk, really. The Kobayashi Maru was a Starfleet Academy test, turns out. And Savick didn't believe she had a fair test of her abilities. And Kirk goes on to explain that the no-win scenario is a situation every commander may face. How one faces death is equally important as one faces life. And, Savick kind of seems annoyed with this a little bit. Kirk offers that now she has something new to think about, and she leaves. And then McCoy, he's laid out on the ground, and he's like, did you enjoy my performance? And I got to say, they really went all out, that crew.
Yeah.
Like, real explosions in the ship just for a simulator. Like, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. They really wanted to make her feel like she was really commanding the
more
ship.
Technology could probably simulate that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Pretend you're dead.
No more camera jiggle on the screen.
Like, I really don't, I'm just happy going like, hey, I'm dead. I don't need you to blow up the console behind me. And some of those look terrifying. Like,
even Sulu took a hit.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Bones and everybody. Yeah. Oh my.
And Spock, of course. Yeah. That's where you think he dies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is bullshit.
Yeah.
Basically, the McCoy asks if the Enterprise will receive an experienced crew, because the idea is that these new recruits are going to be the new crew of the ship. Kirk replies,
"Galloping around the cosmos is a game for the young, Doctor."
Now, what is that supposed to mean?
The funny thing is this movie streamlines the age factor with these people, especially Kirk. The crew is only in their 40s to early 50s at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, today's age, you're kind of still a young pup. I mean, considering the times, but it's just funny how, if you look at the new cast of Star Trek, well, especially like Simon Pegg, he's pushing 50.
Yeah.
You were kidding.
So I don't think he's going to have like a midlife crisis like Kirk does. Just a different time. I mean, I guess back then 50 was like, oh, you're almost dead.
And I think Kirk's was maybe less about age and more of just not being on a ship.
Yeah, exactly.
And not being able to be a captain out there doing what he wants to do.
Right.
He's just pushing pencils and paper, and that's not him.
Exactly. Outside the simulator room, Spock awaits Kirk's opinion of the cadets.
I assume you're loitering around here to learn what efficiency rating I plan to give your cadets.
I am understandably curious.
They destroyed the simulator room, and you with it.
The Kobayashi Maru scenario frequently wreaks havoc with students and equipment. As I recall, you took the test 3 times yourself. Your final solution was, shall we say, unique.
It had the virtue of never having been tried.
Which later on we get to
we know how he did that.
Yeah, exactly. So Kirk also says thanks for the birthday present. Spock gave him the book that he's carrying. It's an antique copy of Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. Spock leaves to go catch a spacecraft aboard the Enterprise, and Kirk heads back to his apartment to celebrate his birthday. Bones, Dr. McCoy, of course, comes to his apartment, presents him with 2 gifts, a bottle of finely aged Romulan ale.
It takes a while to ferment.
Yeah.
I almost thought tonight putting blue dye in some water and then be like, hey, we're having some Romulan. Yeah. And a pair of antique eyeglasses. Noticing Kirk is going through a midlife crisis, he, questions whether Kirk really wants to carry on the duties of an admiral or hop galaxies like he always did. McCoy basically urges Kirk to get back to the starship. They share a nice scene where they're drinking in front of a fireplace, which is like the ideal scene everybody wants, you know?
Right.
The funny thing about the eyeglasses, going back a little bit, I guess Kirk was allergic to some kind of concoction.
Medicine or whatever.
Fix the eye.
Right. So I guess they didn't have contacts in the future.
No LASIK. I don't think.
No LASIK. It's coming through now. So at this point in the movie, we're kind of getting reintroduced to the Enterprise crew. We see them kind of going their separate ways, it seems. So meanwhile, across the galaxy, Chekhov is on board of the USS Reliant, which is orbiting City Alpha 6. The crew is searching for a lifeless planet to satisfy requirements of a test site for the Project Genesis experiment. City Alpha 6 should be incapable of supporting life. Chekhov detects a minor energy reading on the scanning devices. So Chekhov and Captain Terrell beam down to the surface to investigate. And of course, upon their arrival, they come upon the ship wreckage.
Yeah.
And then Chekhov finds out it's the SSS
Botany Bay.
A ship Chekhov remembers all too well. Fun fact, though.
Does he, though?
Yes.
Right.
Go for it, Steve.
Yeah, he wasn't even in the episode with Ricardo Montalban. So, I mean, you know, you can make the argument that, well, Chekhov doesn't know who that is, you know, and you can also make the argument, well, he was off screen or whatever.
That's what fan fiction does. Like, he was in the cafeteria and they met up somehow. I don't know. Argued food or something. I don't know. They fed each other. It was really weird.
But you, I know.
I never forget a face. Of course, you weren't in the show I was in. Yeah.
You handed me a hot dog.
I never forget a face that I didn't see in the original episode.
Exactly.
Plot hole.
Upon Chekhov finding out where they're at, he panics, of course, and tries to rush Terrell out of the ship that they're in, only to find them surrounded by a group of strangely dressed people awaiting them outside. They are then taken prisoner, and their captor reveals themselves as Khan Noonan Singh. Another fun fact, the costume designers, they wanted their clothes to be made or look to be made of material from the ship. If you look at like Khan's gloves, for example, those are supposed to be like microchips. He's got like metallic on his gloves. A lot of detail stuff that I think once you know, it's kind of
it's kind of cool because I mean they had to piecemeal kind of everything that they did.
Yeah,
you know they with the explosion of City Alpha 5? 5.
Yep.
You know it damaged City Alpha 6 and. Or whatever. I get that mixed up maybe.
Yeah, I know.
Either way though,
right.
it destroyed what was supposed to be a good environment.
Supposed to be paradise, pretty much. Yeah.
So I mean they had to make do with whatever they could find.
Right. Yeah.
And they looked like it.
It's like dropping species off by a volcano and saying, they're gonna have a great life.
Right.
Boom. Yeah.
Exactly. Here's Mount Vesuvius. Enjoy.
You know, after Khan reveals, you know, what happened to them.
Is that where the earworms came about?
Yeah.
That's the scene here with the earworms.
Yeah.
He's trying to extract information from Chekhov and Captain Terrell, and you know they're not having any of it, of course, because they're good Starfleet officers. They're trying to maintain their dignity, and you know he gives them the planet's only remaining indigenous life form. You know, so.
Yes.
And what does he do? Is he tickle it or something like that, and then produces little babies that go in the ear?
No,
he gives it a smooch, and basically he takes space tweezers and puts it in their ear, and and they go in and have a good time.
It's like, yeah, it's not a pleasant creature.
No.
So yeah, after he explains that, Khan realizes that the Reliant is actually, they thought they were orbiting City Alpha 6.
Right.
So after the huge reveal that was destroyed, and then 5, you know, was changed dramatically. So basically, Khan blames the death of his wife, which is presumably Lieutenant Marla McGivers.
Yeah,
from the Enterprise
original
crew.
Space Seed episode.
Exactly. And
Historian.
Yes. Yep. Yes. That was how they were attracted, or she was attracted to him, probably.
They were talking about how, you know, he talked about how his wife had died and all that, and Khan's obviously displeased. And yeah, you're right. He sends that rage towards Admiral Kirk. You know, he was very surprised to hear he's an admiral. says the word admiral 48 times in sequence.
Yeah, it just sounds great.
It does sound great. And he says anything, it sounds great.
Oh yeah.
But so the wife is presumably from the Space Seed episode, the Starfleet officer that kind of went with him, and they couldn't use her in the movie because she had multiple sclerosis and was confined to a wheelchair. So
that's sad.
Yeah, but she did continue acting though, well beyond that, in different roles. But yeah, it was she did a great job in that Space Seed episode. You know, I mean, it was awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting little fun fact there.
Yeah,
and they don't mention her by name, but you know that's the assumption.
You get the idea,
right?
Because they were pretty much smitten with each other.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah. Apparently, the city eel, this is the creature that controls Chekhov and Tyrell. So this was presumably the creature that killed his wife. He keeps it as a pet, and he's torturing it pretty much, grabbing it. And
we had a couple of them, right? Or no, he had the one.
I think he had one or two.
And its little spawn or whatever.
Yeah, between the gills or whatever.
Them. Yeah, it crapped out its little raisins, and then they put those in the ears of Tyrell and Chekhov.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta say, like, I love this movie. That scene creeps the shit out of me.
Well, it kind of introduced almost every Star Trek movie thereafter had the scene as a result of that right there, you know, and which I think was kind of cool.
Right.
But, you know, that one was a little terrifying.
It was.
Especially when I was a kid.
It's still terrifying. Khan takes the offspring of this eel and he puts one in each of their space helmets, puts it on their head. They start freaking out. It drops on their cheek and then it gradually goes into their ear. And you got a nice close up of it going into the ear, which I think they built gigantic ear molds of the actors. So they were able to like put a big creature in there, you know, minimize it.
Yeah.
I mean, really incredible effects for its time.
Yeah.
Especially when they later on, we'll get there obviously, but they'll, camera zooms into Chekhov's ear and it goes from like, you know, his average size and then it's all of a sudden the big model, but you can't tell.
It's can't. It looks like it's just a huge close up of his ear.
Absolutely.
Which was really pretty brilliant, you know? And small budget, such a better movie.
Yeah, it's true. Once inside the victims, the eel wraps themselves around the cerebral cortex of the brain, rendering the victim servant to any command. Khan explains further, as the eels grow and mature inside the brain, the victim is slowly driven insane, followed later by death. So, kind of a downer.
It's like getting married.
Star Trek 2, marriage.
The ear slowly wraps itself around the cerebral cortex, and then death.
Star Trek 3, divorce.
It's come through now. It never gets old, I don't know. So once he has control of Chekhov and Tyrell, they board their Reliant ship and they escape City Alpha 5. Before taking this role that he originated back in the 60s, Ricardo Montalban had to be kind of convinced he could do it. At the time, he was doing Fantasy Island, so he was portraying a different character, kind of a character you wouldn't take seriously, I guess you could say. So he kind of had to rediscover his con roots. Yeah. He actually had to watch the show again to find the character. And of course, it's funny how you see him describe how he got the character back.
Yeah.
It's like, I found this passion.
Yeah.
This passion about his wife. And he just made it work. And of course,
and about how he's like not truly bad and he's not truly good or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Really interesting.
Of course, they altered his look. So,
I loved his method on it. No, it's cool.
Yeah. Fantastic. So under the command of now Captain Spock, we're back at the Enterprise, of course. Kirk and McCoy, Uhura and Sulu come aboard. Kirk is inspecting the trainee crew. He's kind of being an ass about I noticed that he went down in engineering. Mm-hmm. He like swipes the control board and Scotty's like
dust. Goes full Spock mode.
Scotty chuckles and I think it was just like humorous banter.
It was humorous and it's just his way of like going through the motions. Kirk did not want to be doing he doesn't want to do that at all.
He goes up to like the lift.
Yeah.
And I think McCoy, it says, what about the rest of the inspection? Right. And he does that later gesture. Later. Kirk receives a distress call from Regula 1. It's a research station that is the base for Project Genesis. Kirk orders the call to be patched through to his quarters, and a communication he is nervous to take. It's from Dr. Carol Marcus, which is a past love interest that we never saw in the original show. Mm-mm. The relationship went sour. Bones
says something just in reference to her.
Never rains, but it pours. As a physician, you of all people should appreciate the dangers of reopening old wounds. Sorry.
Yikes.
Jeez.
Hard ass. Jeez, yeah.
I told you don't be an admiral anymore. Be a captain. So Carol's furious because she's gotten word from the Reliant they're coming to pick up the Genesis project. And Kirk's confused and denies any involvement. Brainwashed Chekhov, of course, informs Carol that Kirk has the order to take possession of the Genesis device. Kirk assumes command with Spock's blessing and orders Enterprise to set course for Regular One.
I think they had T-Mobile as a provider.
Yeah.
Because the signal was just dropped all the time.
Right. Right.
Yeah, this is one of those pieces where I look back and I think of Chekhov when he's communicating that they're going to be there to get all materials for Project Genesis. And we get it that he's been mentally manipulated. That's one of those areas where I think the acting was just a little too much of the, we're going to be there to get it. Thank you. Out. It's like, we get it.
Because he pauses, like he's getting a line. He's getting a line reading.
I mean, it's like it's like ISIS is feeding him a script, I mean, and that's what it felt like, that was just one little area I thought could have maybe been tweaked a little bit better, but.
It'd be cool if he enhanced the volume. You could actually hear Khan tell him what to say.
Right. Now say this.
Who's that? Nobody. Nobody. Admiral Keck. He tasks me.
It's on the screen now.
It's coming through now, Khan.
So, as the Enterprise is en route to Regular One, Kirk asks Spock and McCoy to join him in his quarters. He's going to show him the Genesis project. The video is hosted by Carol Marcus.
Project Genesis, a proposal to the Federation. What exactly is Genesis? Well, put simply, Genesis is life from lifelessness. It is a process whereby molecular structure is reorganized at the subatomic level into life-generating matter of equal mass.
So after they conclude the video presentation, they kind of have a debate amongst the three of them. Spock finds it fascinating. Of course, McCoy just goes out, all McCoy and fascinating, like you green-blooded.
Yeah.
So McCoy's point was, although this is a great weapon, what it can do, but it's also a dangerous one. He points out, what if something's living?
Sure.
So,
you just wipe out an entire planet and start over.
Right.
Whole population's decimated.
Exactly. And he kind of goes into like biblical quotes, like, I think he said myth says the earth was created in, was it 7 days?
Yeah, 7 days. And now you can do it in,
7 minutes.
7 minutes or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Savick interrupts their banter and says they're about to intercept Reliant. Despite being unable to contact Reliant, Kirk is unconcerned at first and is reluctant to raise shields, as Savick reminds him regulations prescribe. They order a yellow alert. So this is a really good scene. They're getting closer and closer together. Tension's building.
Yeah.
You obviously get to see what's going on the other side, Khan, and it's like, yes, we are one big happy fleet.
Yeah.
After the Enterprise attempts to contact them several times, I think the Reliant says that their plasma coils overheated, and Spock says their plasma coils are fine. By the time that happens, Reliant raises shields. Then Enterprise gets hit with a crippling phaser blast right to the engineering section, I believe.
Is that the time when Khan keeps on going, again, like that?
I don't remember.
I don't remember if that's the part or not, but yeah, he was very animated every time he fired upon the Enterprise.
Oh,
yeah. There's one shot. It's very brutal. It's kind of frightening. I don't know. It's always frightening to see, especially like old special effects with people on fire. You can't CG it, back then. But, when they hit that certain section, there's like all of a sudden flames everywhere and dudes are like on fire. And it's like, damn.
It looks terrible.
The stakes are high. Yeah. You don't really feel like it's like, oh yeah, we just lost deck 9 and 2 or whatever. It's like, no, look what happened. They blew up. They don't just get sucked out of the ship like in the new
well, and
movies.
that's just it. You don't see that kind of severity until you get to the new the first one, where you see the ship getting blown up, but then you see people getting sucked out. You hear them screaming, and then once they're outside, there's nothing.
Oh yeah,
right.
That just puts a whole spin on your brain to actually think, oh my god.
Yeah.
That could actually happen.
I don't know which one I'd rather do or experience. I mean, if I had to. Suck out of a ship or get blown up in flames.
I think
in
being sucked out of a ship would probably be, I think, less time to die.
Right.
Yeah.
Just take a deep breath.
Right. And let it go. Yeah.
Breathe it in.
Let your eyeballs melt, the whole thing.
Ugh. Yeah. Ugh. Since they're the same fleet, Khan knows all the weaknesses of each ship, basically. So, yeah, they knew exactly where to hit the Enterprise. So they're crippled. And then all of a sudden, they get a message asking for surrender. And that's when you see Khan come up on screen.
Right.
That's a pretty cool reveal. Shatner's dealing with mortality, and he sees like an old enemy. You know, it's kind of all full circle. Like, Khan explains his plan, basically. The fascinating thing is Shatner and Montalban were never in the same scene. Like, it was all
they were never physically
separately.
together.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. There is a funny story Montalban says in the behind the scenes as he's charging at Kirk with the dialogue. It's actually just this innocent lady reading the lines to him, and he's being all like serious. He's like, "No, you tell me," and that's kind of a fun story. I recommend checking that out for sure. Kirk pretty much is the one that outsmarts Reliant. They were able to get the Reliant codes to lower their shields.
Yep.
And so he was educating Savick about every starship has particular codes or whatnot. Him and Spock act like they're, giving Khan the Genesis transmission.
Right.
And, he says that favorite line you have.
It's coming through now, Khan.
Whips out the glasses,
all smarmy and weird.
It's like, it's my cue to look really old.
Yeah.
Puts the glasses.
It's my cue to look old, and it's my cue to say something so smarmy that a third grader would know that something's coming other than what you're doing. It's the only line in the movie I despise.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's such a great movie. It's the one part.
It's got its faults. Yeah.
But again, I mean, it does not detract from the greatness of this movie.
Of course.
It's just an easy line to make fun of because it's Shatnerized.
Right. The Enterprise barely escapes Reliant. Both ships are pretty much crippled at this point.
Keep quoting regulations, Kirk says to Savick.
Enterprise is continuing on to Regular One to find out what's going on there. Then it's revealed Scotty actually brings his nephew up to the bridge.
Yeah.
His nephew was in engineering with him, and he was badly injured.
That was really his nephew?
Yeah. It's
I guess I never realized
it's a deleted scene.
Oh, cool.
He refers to him as his nephew. It really explains why Scotty's so emotional about it. Tough death scene, and it gave that iconic look to Kirk's uniform when he, puts the blood on it.
Yeah.
They basically tell the crew what's going on. They get to Regular One, and they beam down and find it pretty much abandoned. I think Bones discovers the first body.
Right.
Freaks out, and then they find a ton of bodies. And then they find Chekhov and Terrell in a storage container, and they're just kind of dazed. And I guess you would assume that they're no longer servants to Khan.
Well, they were being shipped overnight with Amazon Prime. So.
Yeah. It was a drone package.
In the loading bay.
Right.
It's a drone package. There's no sign of Carol. Kirk's really concerned where she's at. So they go to the transporter and they find the coordinates to take them down to what appears to be a moon. So basically they beam into this crater. I think Bones said it. Well, how do we know if we're going to go anywhere?
Right.
You can hear them materializing. It's kind of a cool effect. They never really, I don't think, did that again, but they zoom in on the dead moon or whatever. So they beam into like a cave. Turns out that there was a cave dug, and this was probably one of many phases of the Genesis project.
Some sort of testing phase, yeah.
So once they beam in there, they see that the Genesis, is it torpedo?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The Genesis torpedo is just up against the wall.
It's just there chilling.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Kirk and company begin to look around a little bit, and then Kirk gets tackled by David, Carol's son, which is revealed to be Kirk's son as well. Kirk and Carol see each other. Carol tries to break things up. And then, of course, that's when Terrell and Chekhov turn against them all. Yeah. They were really still under control by Khan. And Khan orders Terrell to kill Kirk.
Yeah.
Terrell can't do it. And then another kind of terrifying scene happens. He vaporizes himself.
Turns the phaser on himself.
Yeah.
Oopsie.
Ugh. And then, of course, Chekhov freaks out.
Phaser set to kill.
Yeah.
Yikes.
He freaks out, and then we see the close-up of the creature coming out, and I think it's Kirk that vaporizes the little creature.
Yeah.
It's pretty gross.
Yeah.
And of course, that's, another famous scene where Kirk grabs Terrell's wrist communicator and starts taunting Khan.
You've got Genesis, but you don't have me. You are going to kill me, Khan. You're going to have to come down here. You're going to have to come down here.
I've done far worse than kill you. I've hurt you. And I wish to go on hurting you. I shall leave you as you left me, as you left her, marooned for all eternity in the center of a dead planet. Buried alive. Buried alive.
He really made up for his "it's coming through now" Khan line.
Yeah.
I mean, because the emotion and rage that he had there,
Yeah.
especially when he was talking and taunting him, it was like, Kirk was a little upset, and he conveyed that super well, and he didn't do it in that smarmy way. That was awesome.
Oh, it was. It
Very
was.
good.
They're in the cave. It's communicated beforehand that the Enterprise communications are disabled. Kirk tells him, if you don't hear from us in a couple hours, you are to take off to the
Get
latest
out of there and
near
go to the next
star base.
Yeah. If we're going by the book,
Yes.
so I mean, it was their code
Yeah.
that instead of days, it was hours.
Right.
So they were speaking in code,
Right.
and Khan, in his superior intellect, wasn't able to
Because like
decipher
Spock
that,
said, he
obviously.
has
right,
two-dimensional thinking.
right,
Which is a really pretty cool.
brilliant analogy.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely. They have time to kill. So after leaving the cave, Kirk is shown where everyone else is, of course, at this time. It's beautiful. It's hills or waterfalls.
Oh yeah,
It's very
it's like
peaceful.
paradise, in a cave.
So they're just casually talking about the Kobayashi Maru, because Savick, was like, well, we have time to talk about this. How'd you beat it? And I think Bones said, you're looking at the only guy who beat the test.
Yeah.
And Kirk says he reprogrammed the simulator
Right.
so he could win.
Which was awesome.
Right.
And beautifully done in the new reboot as well.
Yes, because
showing that.
the apple,
Yeah.
because the apple's also in the reboot. Kirk's eating an apple. He's
Yeah.
just discussing this. So 2009 Star Trek, while they're doing the simulator,
Yeah.
Kirk's eating an apple.
That was
Really,
so great.
really cool. Yeah. After talking about the test and what he did, and Kirk's just casually in the moment, he's just eating an
Yeah.
apple, and he's just like, he's kind of Kirk again,
Yeah.
basically. Kirk opens communications with the Enterprise and says, are we ready to be beamed up? And everyone's puzzled.
Yeah.
And that's when he goes into hours instead of days.
Right.
They beam aboard, of course, and Savik's talking to Spock and saying, a lie?
An exaggeration.
Yeah, there
I
you go.
believe, yeah.
There you go. Spock has the idea to take the Enterprise into the Mutarla Nebula. So it's got ionized gases that disrupt sensors and shields for both of the
Yeah,
vessels.
visual only.
Kirk tries to taunt Khan into coming into the nebula. And, Khan's crew are like, they're actually smarter than Khan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Khan's just, of course, it's the Moby Dick theme. Khan is after his whale,
Mhm.
and his crew, even though they know what they're talking about, it's no good. Khan's like, we're going in.
Would have been an interesting movie if you just hung out there and they got bored and they were like, well, he's gone now.
Yeah.
They come back out and you see like Khan's ship waiting there just
Yeah.
poof. And then they're
He just
done.
shoots like all
just
their,
like everything explodes and then he's like, and then he drives off and that's the end of the movie.
he shoots all the torpedoes.
Dun, 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 dun. Credits,
New generation.
Right.
theme.
Cleon clap.
Yeah.
So yeah, they go into the nebula. Khan follows eventually, and then we get this cat and mouse chase. Very intense.
Yeah.
Especially there's one scene where they finally get visuals and they're like coming right up against each other.
Oh, yeah.
And Kirk's like, back off, back off. Enterprise gets the best of the Reliant and cripples it for good. I think blowing off one of the warp engines or warp
drives.
Warp nacelles.
warp themselves.
So,
Thank you.
And that whole 2D thinking, two-dimensional thinking really came to play in the nebula because, instead of just the head-on trying to find each other and stuff, the Enterprise would drop. There and it was just really cool. They changed the axis and the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty awesome tactics.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty neat.
It was a cool effect too. I forgot how. If you look at the behind the scenes, they show you how they did it.
Yeah.
I think it's some kind of gas and water, all that stuff.
So cool.
Very cool. So they get the upper hand, and it looks like everything's A-okay. They're gonna get out of this. And then Khan, who is very, he's pretty much crippled at this time, deformed, crawling around the ship. Everyone else is dead, it appears. He decides to activate the Genesis device. So, in the end, he will get Kirk anyway. So this kind of brings in that whole no-win scenario into play that Kirk never believed in.
Right.
Basically, they have to get out of there in a matter of time. Like the probe is going to... It's just going to blow up everything, the nebula, everything. It's dramatically done how Khan activates the tech or whatever. It's like he has to turn those knobs.
He has to twist it and, and then
There's
they get that final push, or whatever.
And they cut to the transporter where it's still at. They didn't even move the thing. And it's slowly arming itself. Yeah. It's just so...
There was some good tension built.
Yes.
Very good.
And, I think for a moment you see Kirk's expression like, we're not going to get out of this. He doesn't.
Yeah, that holy crap moment.
Yeah. He's like, Scotty, we need warp drive now. So, we see Spock, look like he's in thought, gets up, walks out.
Yeah, because warp drive is not coming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was no way.
So he goes through engineering and
hits the mess hall first, didn't he? And no.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Grabs a hot dog on the way over.
One last plate full of gach. It's best when served live.
And he's going to clean out the crystals. Is that what he's thinking?
He's doing something right. So he has to get in there, and he was doing something manually to, get the dilithium chamber back online, get the warp core back rolling, and they can hightail it out of Dodge.
And of
Isn't
course,
it out of sync or something like that? So he has to push it back in manually or something like that?
no, it's that's the Into Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, it's similar.
Yeah, it's a similar concept.
They didn't have probably the budget to do that, back then.
This one's just basically you're in a glass room with a light,
Oh, okay.
Right.
The effect was still.
So, of course you have Bones and Scotty trying to stop Spock, and I think Scotty's just so... Actually, I'm sorry, Scotty didn't even try and stop him because he was like... He's out of it, pretty much. Radiation was everywhere. And so Bones tried to stop Spock, and Spock's like, perhaps you're right. And then he grabs his face and he says, remember.
Well, yeah, perhaps you're right, Doctor. And then, McCoy's kind of turned around, nerve pinch.
Yeah.
And then
classic nerve pinch. Yeah.
And then he does the whole, remember. And
Spock goes into the chamber, opens it up, and it's like he's grabbing, he's got gloves on at least. So he's his hands look pretty.
Safety first.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, he's grabbing everything, and it's looking pretty bad. Like he's really in pain, and
pulls a K-19, fixes it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what happened to K-19?
Well,
the Widowmaker.
Yeah. Well, their
I'm Liam Neeson,
radiation core blew up, and so they sent in men with rain suits and tried to fix it. It's kind of similar.
And he shut the doors behind him.
The only difference is that he wore a pair of gloves.
Yeah.
Over his, woolly shirt.
As Kirk is just, trying to be calm in his captain's chair. He's like, anytime now, Scotty.
Right.
He has no idea what's going on downstairs. So all of a sudden, is it Scotty who says we're good to go, or?
Well, I believe it was someone on the bridge, wasn't it? Or we have,
Oh yes, we have.
The engines are back online or something like that. And
go, Sulu, go.
Poof, they go.
Right.
Gone. And then Kirk gets the word, Captain, I think you should come down here or something like that.
And he sees Spock's empty chair.
Yeah. Right.
And so he
realizes,
has an idea of what's going on. Yeah. And then, that classic heartbreaking scene where he sees Spock lying in the chamber, tries to run up to him. He tries to get in it, I think.
And they stop him. They have to restrain him. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Bones and Scotty try hold Kirk back. Behind the scenes, DeForest Kelly and James
Doohan.
Jimmy Doohan, yep. Doohan, yep.
Jimmy Doohan. They decided to switch their lines because, if you recall, Bones says, "Don't go in there," and then Scotty goes, "He's dead already."
Right.
That was supposed to be Bones' line.
Oh, weird.
So
I
they
didn't know
switched
that.
it. Yeah, they switched it a little bit.
And you know what? Coming from Scotty, it just sounded so great because of the accent. And
He's dead already.
Right.
Yeah.
He accentuates that point really
right.
well.
Because Bones is already dramatic as
Yeah.
it is, so very, sad reveal, of course, what they tell him. But he goes over anyway, and they're separated by glass, and they have a moment, and it's very sad, and it's very iconic.
Ship out of danger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whole thing was great.
And then, of course, Spock passes. Spock has his hand up on the glass, live long and prosper sign. And, of course, Kirk can't do it. And I think in real life, Shatner couldn't do that sign. So then, of course, we have Spock's funeral. And, it's very, very sad. Very sad ending. They decide to put Spock in a torpedo tube.
Right.
And they're going to launch him into the Genesis planet. Now, this has kind of confused me. I don't know if you're able to find out how it formed, but it blew up in the nebula, right?
I believe so, yeah.
There was no planet for it to consume. So did it just become out of nothing a planet?
That's what I don't really understand either.
It
might be a
terraformed itself.
Plot hole, yeah, because it
I
needed.
don't think it's ever explained.
Yeah, because it needed a planet.
Yeah.
It wasn't like he
solid
launched
surface.
it. Yeah, it blew up right then and there.
And maybe that's what happened. It terraformed itself. Who knows? But,
it's kind of left open there.
It's left a little open there.
So, Kirk has a, real emotional moment, of course. It's a downer, but, they recover by, looking at what they have, basically. Kirk, he's renewed pretty much from this whole experience with the Genesis, a new life, all that. Kirk has that great moment with his son where, they have a hug.
Yeah, they hug it out.
Yeah, hug it out.
Have a barbecue.
Yeah, barbecue.
Share a beer. Yeah.
Cheers. Zima. So, you get to see Spock launched into the Genesis planet after Kirk and crew collect themselves and try and make something great out of something horrible. They go on their own way, and then the line from Star Trek is recited by Leonard Nimoy. At the end, you get to see the planets, the Genesis planet and the sun. And then we go down into the planet and we see the torpedo tube nicely on the surface.
Yeah. Just laying there.
So it kind of just gives you something could happen.
Man,
from
who
this.
knows?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the writers are probably like, how the hell do we,
right.
How do we get him out of this? Remember. That was the end of the movie. I'm sure. I don't know do you remember at the time what the audience was like, what you felt?
I just remember loving it. I remember thinking to myself, it was awesome. I got to see it with my dad. I mean, my dad was he got me into Star Trek, when I was a little kid, on the original series reruns. And, it was just awesome. People in the theater loved it, and it was packed, and, it was phenomenal.
That's great. And do you remember if you thought Spock would survive somehow, or?
I remember thinking as a kid, man, that'd be great if you could bring him back sometime, but at the time, you don't even know if a sequel's coming.
Right, and they didn't either. The crew didn't. In fact, it's kind of sad, but every set that they constructed was destroyed.
Yeah.
And it's also part of the special features, which I highly recommend. Most of these special features have been out for a while. They just re-released Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, director's cut and theatrical cut. It's got a great Mondo cover, art cover to it.
It looks really great.
There's so many features. It is totally worth the price. It's $14.99, I believe, $15, whatever.
Yeah.
If you buy it from Best Buy or Target, you get a free ticket to see Star Trek Beyond, which is excellent.
Totally worth it.
I got mine on Amazon because I couldn't wait. And around here, they weren't showing up at all, which was just, I didn't understand. But this thing's chucked full of features. It's totally worth the money and the time. But what I was getting at is there's actually a lady who rescued these set pieces, and she was able to help, production.
That's awesome. Going
down further, into more films. They were able to recycle the sets rather than destroy them, because that would be a whole budget thing, and, creating those set pieces. So, this movie I hold it up high. It's one of my favorites.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people put 2, 3, and 4 as a trilogy, which really is, it's one big arc. Very pleased with, the movie. It's got its problems like every movie does.
But really not that many. And the problems it has are super small.
Oh yeah. It's just nitpicking,
It's nitpicky stuff. And it's, like the Kirk line I like to make fun of. It's just totally nitpicky.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's just a great, great film. I mean, and kind of a side note, what do you think of Saavik, the Kirstie Alley Saavik versus the one we saw in Star Trek 3?
Oh, that's good. I still don't really know what happened behind the scenes with Kirstie Alley. She didn't want to come back, or is that the deal?
I don't know if it was she didn't want to come back or she wanted too much money. I don't remember.
I thought it was always budget.
Yeah.
I just remember I liked the second actress better, but I liked the portrayal better that Kirstie Alley did.
Because it was the first portrayal, probably.
It was the first portrayal, and they really played up that she was half Vulcan, half Romulan.
Right. And that was like something they didn't, it was kind of on the...
it was totally unspoken for the most part, but it's why she would actually exhibit some emotion.
At the end, especially. Which I read Shatner was not happy with that. Because
it's just too bad. I mean,
right. Well, I think it was because he was like, I get my cry scene, and she's a Vulcan, not supposed to, but she's half Romulan.
She's half Romulan, and of course, we know the Romulans, they embrace the emotion, usually the negative emotion. Right. But yeah, so I mean, I just thought, and they didn't really explore that in Star Trek 3 with Saavik.
Right.
She was very much Vulcan and played it very straight, so
yeah,
it was interesting.
They were very different in what, I don't know. I think Kirstie Alley had a more theatrical feel to it, I guess. But the other one, I liked the other one just fine.
And I did too.
Yeah.
I like that exploration of the half Romulan piece.
Yeah. I wish
feel like
they
it's
would have
a totally wasted opportunity.
It is. It was very wasted because, I mean, we're going ahead a little bit here, but Star Trek 3, she basically,
nurtures Spock back to Spock.
When they left Vulcan in Star Trek 4, she was theoretically pregnant with Spock's child, and that's why she was staying. Yeah. But they never explored that.
Never did.
That would have been fantastic. Yeah. Child of Spock.
Oh, yeah.
Could have been. But, I mean, this Star Trek 2 is a formula that they have repeatedly used throughout all the movies. Nemesis comes to mind, Into Darkness especially.
Yeah. And not very many people utilize the formula as well. I mean,
no, they don't. I mean, they just kind of take like the great hits basically, and there's nothing in between, and it just kind of crumbles. As great a movie as it is, it's very simple story, about revenge. Yeah, it's just the way it was filmed. Meyer really brought something new to it, and
and the cast pulled it off.
Oh, of course,
yeah. You can have the most basic story in the world, and if you have amazing actors or at least people that are invested in their characters pulling it off, it's so entertaining.
This is the only cast, from what I can remember, who had a TV series. Years later, they had a movie series. There's no really other, cast out there that, I guess Sex and the City you could say, but they didn't have a series of movies. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just, of course, from the original series, they had the animated series, and then they had the movie series. This movie was great. I love the special features on it. I mean, they really go into the design of things, the ranks, the uniforms. I highly recommend it. I mean, $14.99, that's a hell of a price for
a bargain.
Oh, it is. It is. And it looks fantastic with the Blu-ray. I hope everyone enjoyed listening to our dissection of this movie. And that said, I'm Josh.
Mitch.
And I'm Steve.
Live long and prosper.
Space, the final frontier. These are the continuing voyages of the starship Enterprise. Her ongoing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life forms and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.